When he turned his back from shoulder to shoulder, it looked like as wide as the tailgate of a truck.
And just darkness, literal darkness, just came like all over, just all over me except where I was standing.
This thing let out the most blood-curdling, mind-blowing, spine-tingling scream that you've ever heard in your life, and it cut through me like a knife.
And I knew that they were going to take me. I just knew it. And then the next thing I can remember is being levitated.
Well, when I look in there, I see two big eyes staring back at me.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Bump Podcast, a place for the believers of the unexplained, monsters, and paranormal. Join us, and we'll go face to face with what goes bump in the night. Hey there, believers. I got another good episode for you today. I'm bringing back Trey from Squatch Me Now. I had him on here a couple months ago, but since last time we talked, there's been some further development. Apparently, somebody that listens to the show reached out to Trey and got a hold of him about some stuff, and we're going to get into all of that and whatever else he has that's come up. So I won't spend a whole lot of time talking. Let's go ahead and bring Trey on the show. All right, Trey, how's it going, buddy?
Good. How are you, man?
Doing good. I had you on my show, season 2, episode 32, right? It was the first time you were on.
Yeah, a little while ago.
I'm hoping to have you back regularly because it seems like there's so much more to talk about.
always so much more to talk about.
First off, you're doing a docu-series. We talked about it a little bit before we started recording here. Masters of the Hunt. You want to tell me about that, when it's coming out, and just a little bit of behind the scenes?
Sure. Right, sure. So Masters of the Hunt is a docu-series. It's Bigfoot. We are looking at this subject and this phenomenon from every angle possible. It's not just going camping in the area where there's some sightings and maybe we get something, maybe we don't. Subject matter and investigation never stops, whether it's from your chair where you're looking at new videos on your iPad or out in the field. There's a lot going on. There's new witnesses all the time. There's new technology that we can use, always being developed, and using new and unique ways. So we've started production about 2 years ago. That's when we actually started filming. COVID put a little bit of a damper on that, kind of slowed things down, at least from a field investigation standpoint. But we've been filming B-roll. We've been filming for the project itself, and custom producing a lot of things specifically for this project. So Masters of the Hunt, the title doesn't come from me being a great Bigfoot hunter or anybody I'm working with necessarily being a great Bigfoot hunter. The title comes from the name that the Cherokee had for a tribe of giants that would come to visit them and would hunt with them hundreds of years ago. Pre-colonial or early colonial days was when one of the most reputable recordings of this event happened, written down by James Mooney in mid-1800s. He was documenting stories of the Cherokee, and with an interview with the Cherokee man, he said, my grandmother told me this story. It's in 1850, I think. Right. This Cherokee man's grandmother told him the story about this happened to her, ancestors. So it happened a long time ago, but they were referred to as the Lords of the Game, and a more modern interpretation of that would be Masters of the Hunt. Nice. And that's how they were invoked in Cherokee hunting rituals. These were huge, powerful creatures that just dominated. They were apex predators. So that's where the name comes from, and we'll carry it throughout the series, but it's specific to the area where we're starting this journey, which is in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and moving out throughout this first season through the Appalachian mountain chain. So these are the oldest mountains in the world. These are ancient mountains, and full of caverns, mostly unexplored. So we don't really know what's going on, but we do know that there's a lot of sightings here. Another aspect that we're looking at is the cultural impact of sighting reportings. How many of these sightings are actually being reported, and how does that skew population estimates by Bigfoot researchers who say, oh, this area, that area has more, a larger population simply because of the reports they're getting. Well, I can tell you here in the South, people are much more reserved when it comes to this topic, even educated or not, across all demographics, religious or not, people don't talk about it as much. One of the hardest things we've had taking this journey and starting this journey here in the South is just that people don't want to talk about it. They'll tell me about it. They don't want to go on camera. This might be for a variety of reasons, religious, economic, maybe they have a business, or a job that they frown upon going public with this kind of information. But I know that there's a lot going on here. I'm talking to a lot of people that are having a lot of interesting encounters that I've been able to actually follow up on and had found some evidence of my own to back it up. But I can tell you it's an active area and there's a long history there. And so the masters of the hunt, the lords of the game, their name is the plural form of the name Sul-Kalu, who was the great god of the hunt to the Cherokee. And there's a famous legend about Sul-Kalu. And we'll have a whole episode dedicated pretty much to this guy. But Sul-Kalu was known for mind speak. He was known for being a great hunter, obviously, just stacking deer with his bare hands. And for ripping up trees, whole trees, dragging whole trees around. All of this is very Bigfoot-like behavior, as well as living underground inside of mountains in very remote spots that humans couldn't even get to. So all this stuff sounds very Sasquatch-like. I don't know that. Obviously, we don't know what exactly these ancient Cherokee were seeing. What type of Bigfoot we're talking about here that this might represent. And we don't know that actually, these could have been more human-like giants, but I think in a lot of cases, one of the types that we may be dealing with, or multiple of these types, may be very human-like, So it's a very interesting, rich history here of Sul-Kalu or Judaculla in these mountains that we're starting in, and there certainly seems to still be something here that people are seeing that matches this kind of description and creating the same kind of experiences that these ancient indigenous people were having. So
you even mentioned like this is before we were recording, you were talking about how a lot of, like, in the Native American legends or whatever, they would refer to them as devils or something like that.
Sure, yeah. So you had the Cherokee Devil, which was a name for a Bigfoot-like creature. And a lot of early settlers and Native indigenous people would name places, the Devil's Ridge, or the Devil's Creek, or Devil's this, or Devil's that, because these creatures live there. And if you think about how a lot of people describe them, sometimes with red eyes, or gnarled-looking face, these horrific screams and that kind of stuff, you can understand why these early people might call them the devil. So one place that is in eyesight from Judaculla Rock, which Judaculla was the anglicized version of Sul-Kalu, is the Devil's Courthouse. And that was said to be one of his dwellings. And it's this steep rock face that leads up to like a cavernous area. And that's where, one of the places he was said to dwell. And in the original story, he takes a Cherokee bride, and her brother goes looking for him, and he has a hard time getting to her because he lives in this remote, steep cave with a steep rock face. So there's things that tie in very interestingly to these old stories and locations you can find here. There's even a line, and if you look on the motion poster we released, the first sort of little teaser we put it out to sort of give everybody a vibe and aesthetic where we're going with this. There's a little Easter egg in that poster. You'll see a line on probably the lower third going through, just looks like a rock texture. There's a line. That rock texture actually comes from Judicolor rock. And some historians theorize that line was a border line for hunting grounds. On one side was Cherokee hunting grounds, on the other side where the masters would hunt. That was their hunting grounds. So that's what Easter egg is in the poster. You can go back and look at, and go look at photos of Judicolor rock and see that. We're looking at this from a historical standpoint. We're going out and doing investigations, and we're trying to be properly equipped, whether that's the proper long lenses, something I talk about on social media all the time because I'm a photographer and a videographer by trade, is have the right equipment. A lot of people ask, you see a lot of Bigfoot hunters running around with GoPros. GoPros are great cameras. Those kind of action cameras are great to have, but it's not going to give you, just like a cell phone, it's not going to give you the image you want at the end of the day. It might tell you, oh, there was something back there. You might catch something you wouldn't normally catch, but you're not going to get that photo that really makes people go, wow, that's National Geographic style photography or videography. Yeah. Because the lens is too wide. It's a very simple thing. If you understand photography, most cell phone cameras are 24 to 28 millimeters. It's an extremely wide lens. It's something you're going to get from like a POV in a monster movie. But typically in cinema, you're not going to go much wider in normal photography than 35 millimeters. Most nature photography is shot between 200 and 400 millimeters. So that's a much longer lens. And as you get that long a lens, you're that far zoomed in, you start to have stability issues. So that's why anytime you see a nature photographer, most of the time, especially if they're trying to shoot video, they're on sticks, they're on a tripod. Yeah. Because the more you zoom in, try it even with your cell phone. Pick your cell phone up, try to do your digital zoom. You're going to see that things start getting real shaky. And that's pretty much with any zoom. That's why we end up with shaky footage, blurry footage. We talked about earlier. A lot of times it's not blurry, it's pixelated. Right. Pixelated can come from low light, pixelated can come from cropping, pixelated can come from zooming in too much, low resolution to start with, online compression. These videos that are online go through a long digital life, and every time they're uploaded, downloaded, re-uploaded, re-downloaded, even when they're being filmed on their phone or wherever they film it, there's a compression going on. Even with a modern, $5,000 mirrorless DSLR or something, or mirrorless digital camera, you're still have compression going on unless you're using some sort of raw, separate recorder. Typically, most people that see Bigfoot aren't set up like this. You're not set up for, with 10, 20, 30 grand worth of professional video or photo equipment, and then happen to have your tripod set up in just the right spot for Bigfoot to step out and for you to get that high. I get it all the time. TikTok has gone over 200,000 followers, and wow, so many times a day. It's 2021. Why can't we get a clear photo or video? Well, go try to get, how long these guys are sitting out there trying to get that Arctic fox on video? Right. Sit out for 2 years with 20 grand worth of equipment in the snow, waiting for that Arctic fox to walk in front of their tripod. That's why we're not getting it. So we're trying to go out there with all the right equipment, not just GoPros and that kind of stuff, but the right drones, both standard drones as well as thermal drones, thermal cameras,
Nice.
long lenses, setting up some new light trap technology. So we're not actually trying to trap them with a camera. We're trying to make sure they're lit. So if we do get something and it's not run off IR, so we're not going to be dealing with potential IR issues. It's not that kind of trap. So there's a lot of strategy going on. There's a lot of people that need to be in play in specific situations. And then, you know, is something going to wander into our trap? Who knows? But like I said, this is an ongoing project because I don't foresee this ending anytime soon. Because I don't foresee my interest ending it anytime soon. And it's going to take a lot to get any kind of real answers. But I think at the end of the day, utilizing every form of technology that's out there, stuff that's being used in other types of paranormal investigations, stuff that is being used already in Bigfoot investigations, and stuff that exists but isn't quite being used in the way it should for Bigfoot investigations. We'll come back with a lot more information on the subject for the future of its existence and our interests as human beings. And then other things we're looking at is how can we talk to the people that just say, not just with photographic and videographic information and knowledge, but everyone that says it's just a suit or it's just CGI. That's another aspect that we're looking at. And I can tell you already, it's not a lot of cases, it's not just a suit, and it's definitely not CGI. CGI right off the bat is going to be extremely difficult to make look real on something with hair. Right. Something with hair is an incredibly detailed creature, and to make that hair move and flow in any sort of realistic way, it's not going to be easy, and I'm not sure if it's even really possible unless no one's really trying it. You don't see it being done in a way that, and if it is, it's not being done by Hollywood with millions of dollars to do it.
Right. In
a way that's any person that watches movies would say that's CG, you know, and it's cool CG, but it's still CG. And then you start adding things like there's branches in the foreground of the shot. One of my favorite videos of all time is the Leaping Yeti, Leaping Almasty in Russia. Oh, you know, one where it's like leaping over trees and fallen trees and all this crazy. The physicality of that creature alone, a lot of people, because of the physicality, automatically say to me that's CG. I can tell you that I've been in the industry for 20 years. I can't really tell you how that would be CG. It's handheld. So, okay, so you shoot it on a tripod and then you add the shake and post-production. It doesn't look like that to me. Secondly, you'd have to create that entire environment in CG because you have all these different elements in the foreground. I just don't think this Russian kid and his dad went through all this.
Right.
And shot it on this crappy camera in Siberia and produced that video. It just didn't happen. So, I mean, I think even the son has been on, like, you know, Paranormal Call on Camera, one of those shows, and talks about it. It's real. You've seen that guy interviewed. You don't, nothing about him seems like he could possibly done that. I don't know how I would do it. CG is one of the videos that I'm at least going to try to produce the physicality of. Practical effects or anything you produce practically without computer generation, but it's been very hard so far. We've produced 2 suits. One suit is being brought to life by a 6'7", 375-pound ex-professional wrestler.
I love it.
Big, huge guy. One of the other suits is we've modified some technology that's existed for about 20 years, but made some customizations to it, and it's meant to sort of emulate that sort of athleticism that we see in that video. But I can tell you, we've been trying to do this, and this is part of the process. This is part of the real documentary process, that authentic process. But it's not been easy, and it's not been. Our suits take damage. You know, these are suits that are very expensive already. So get into that. They're expensive to produce. Now they're taking damage in like the first few shoots with them. And we're not, as of yet, we haven't been able to produce that level of physicality.
Right.
And we've found environments that we thought would be fairly easy to operate in have been extremely difficult. As simple as a cornfield, has been extremely difficult to produce any sort of emulated hoax video, or try to produce what we're seeing in some of these videos. So far, it's been almost impossible. I mean, some of these are obviously very simple. If you just see a photo, you never know. Photos can be manipulated much more easily. But a video, we actually have, kinetic movement from these creatures. It's hard to create that, and it's very expensive already. So I think, before people say automatically it's a suit or it's CG, wait till this comes out, watch it, and you'll see that it's very hard to try to produce some of what's going on here. And then even something as simple as the Independence Day footage, which is that famous shot of the mother carrying the baby through the boulder field. Good luck with that. Good luck. It's probably like a 45-degree slope, maybe a little bit less, but wear a full suit. If that baby is a hand puppet, that's the only way I can see to do it practically, is to have that baby just be a hand puppet. It's carrying it like this, Operate a hand puppet, walk in a Bigfoot suit, down a hill, through a boulder field, and don't fall and break your neck, and look that smooth. And the whole time you're looking over here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, while looking at the camera. Yeah.
You're not even looking where you're going. And you put on these masks. If you're wearing a mask, we've got some guys wearing, testing out all kinds of different types of suits and suit pieces. We've made them fairly modular, so we can take different pieces from some people just make masks, that are out there doing this on Etsy or whatever it is, or professional makeup artists. Some people are, it's just stuff you can buy at Walmart. We're trying to sort of test everything out and see what works. But some of these masks you can't even see out of unless they're just perfectly made to fit your face, or we go through some sort of customization to make sure they do.
Yeah.
It's a big pain to try to do this and recreate some of. Now, I try not to post videos that are obviously a guy in a Walmart gorilla suit.
Right.
Trying to post anything like that. So I'm focusing on the videos that are, I'm going, how'd they do that? And now I'm trying to do it as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And we just run into all these, even just scheduling, just getting your buddies or your coworkers or other filmmakers, whoever, get everybody there the same day. The guy in the suit, then it doesn't rain, then it doesn't, you don't have this happen, that happen, or, it's been too hot to even film. You guys are going to have heart attacks. Until, a few weeks ago, these suits are really hot. We're in a warehouse putting this one suit together for our first test shots. I'm putting an appliance on this guy, and he's in a full suit. His makeup sweating off in a warehouse with fans and AC and all this stuff going full blast, and his makeup sweating off almost as quickly as I can put it on.
Just that alone is a perfect reason why you won't see people out here just doing this for fun as a hoax.
It's a lot of work, man. It's a lot of work. I don't, it's money, it's work. And I'm still trying to do all these other aspects of it, cover all these other aspects of the phenomenon. Like I said, from history to just standard investigations, but adding this element in of trying to show people what goes into this. When you talk about, I've told a lot of people lately on social media to go watch this new documentary that came out last year about the Planet of the Apes. It's a documentary just about the original Planet of the Apes movies and the makeup effects behind it.
Yeah.
And think that two cowboys from Northern California produced a suit comparable to Patty's at the same time frame when Hollywood couldn't.
Right.
The Planet of the Apes are all wearing clothes. You know why? You don't have to produce all that.
Right.
They're supposed to be domesticated or civilized or whatever you want to call it. But that's a lot of extra cost in producing the bodysuit and the whole thing. So, I think that's going to be an important aspect of maybe hoping to wake people up to the fact that this is not an easy thing to just hoax. It's easy to say. It's easy to say suit, suit. I don't know how many comments a day I get, suit,
Yeah.
CG, suit, but it's not that easy. It's very difficult.
I love that. It's like you're debunking the debunkers, you know.
I would love to. I want to see someone. I mean, I had someone say that to two people were arguing on Instagram the other day on one of my posts, and the guy had a good point. He said, "Then go produce that. Go produce that video. Go do it. If it's just fake, if it's just a hoax, go produce it." And I wanted to say that's what we're doing, but I didn't yet. But I think I think it's such an important thing to look at, and I imagine that I'm going to have some kickback from the community in some places. People are going to say, "Oh, you're teaching them how to hoax or whatever." I'm teaching you that it's not worth it.
Right.
Don't try it. It's not easy. It's going to cost you so much money, so much time. And, like I said, I was going to that cornfield with one of the guys in the suits a couple of weeks ago. This cornfield's full of these reeds with these massive mutated thorn sticker things that have mutated from too much Roundup. And now they're like 4 times the size they used to be. And I was covered with them by the time I got out of there. I brought a bunch of them home with me, couldn't get them all off. I'd go lean back we were in a Jeep. We were way out of it. And I'm getting stuck every time I try to move somewhere because my whole body is covered in these things. We're cutting them out of the suit. I'm cutting them out of my on-camera mic's wind muff.
Yeah.
I don't know who it's hot. It's I don't know who would want to. It's almost impossible for some of these videos to have been hoaxed. And so if we're taking the fact that, okay, maybe some of these were, that's doable, maybe, perhaps, and we're going to find out, I'm sure, when we look at some videos. But some of them aren't. And if they're not hoaxed, it's not practical effects, it's not CGI effects. What was it?
Right.
Then it's something real in camera that they captured. What is that? So that's a big, I don't know, it's a hard gamble. You're making a documentary to just say, "Oh, I'm going to go get some footage of a Bigfoot." If anything, might be able to sell some pareidolia or something like that, but to get something crisp and clear, we at least, like I said, want to go out with the right equipment to make sure we can do it. We can use thermal, we can use standard drones, we can use all these night vision, we use all these things to maybe locate where we might have a creature, but a thermal image is never going to sell it.
Yeah.
Never can convince anybody.
Never.
And I have some longer term plans with this where I would like to sort of take that a little bit further, but in this first bit, I just want to make sure that we're out there with the right equipment to get a clear photo if we need it, and to use all this other equipment almost as support apparatus, support infrastructure, to be able to locate where a particular target might be, and then get the right equipment there to get the image that we, or to drive them into the right area that we can light up to get the right image we need.
Yeah.
So that's again, even night vision, thermal, I don't think any of that is going to sell anybody at the end of the day. It's cool. There's some really cool thermal footage out there. Expedition Bigfoot has come up with some cool stuff the last couple seasons.
Yeah.
Very interesting stuff. Now, one where you see the thing, I don't know if it's season 2, but comes up and there's some deer in front of it, and you just see this big like head and shoulders kind of come up out of the bushes, and very cool stuff. But it's not. And at the end of the day, somebody's going to say that's just a person.
Yeah.
Because you can't tell it.
Yeah, or that they just faked the whole video and they did a CG thermal image.
Right. CG thermal. Have the right camera with the right lens on the right support system. Hit it with a spotlight, right?
Yeah.
Or something. Even our drones have spotlights on them. We put a drone right above it, hit it with the light. Something, so that we can get a clear image if we have the opportunity. And if not, we're at least putting together a blueprint of a more comprehensive way of getting the evidence that we need to add more weight to the subject. So that's sort of the investigation, the history. Like I said, we're starting in the Appalachians first season. we'll focus on these mountains, and the first probably 3 episodes will be in the Blue Ridge, which is the southern sort of Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, a bit of Tennessee. That area is sort of where we'll start in the first 3 to 4 episodes. And there's some famous cases here. We have Dennis Martin, that's right on the North Carolina-Tennessee border, where he disappeared. People saw something very Bigfoot-like at that time of his disappearance. There's a lot of interesting, funny enough, there's a bunch of interesting sightings around the Masonic Lodge on the Blue Ridge Parkway in North Carolina.
Really?
Which is weird that they're like, I just thought it was interesting. I'm looking at Bigfoot Map, the Bigfoot Map app. I don't know if you've seen that. But he's going to be working with us. We're working with those guys to put together some maps for this project and probably do some interactive stuff through the app, so people can see some sort of exclusive behind the scenes type clips through the app itself. Nice. On pinned locations where we're investigating. There's some interesting stuff right around the Masonic Lodge. Fairly recent, older encounters, but some very recent ones as well. I think I told you before we started recording, I've got a guy out of Pennsylvania who, after seeing our last talk, sent me some microscopic photos, photos taken with a microscope of hair samples that he's collected. Apparently has a lot of activity in his area, his neck of the woods. So he's going to be getting those. I told you in the last talk, I think, that I have another hair sample from a guy around here.
Yes.
In this area. So we're going to be looking at hair samples, getting some DNA tests done on those. So there's tons of stuff going on. Like I said, we were talking about earlier, it's such a great catalyst subject, gateway subject for so many different things. Everything from, evolution, quantum physics, all these different, tons of stuff, government conspiracies, indigenous people, all kinds of history, there's a ton of stuff. So one of the stories I told you earlier that I just got, but haven't been able to get the guy to come talk to me yet. 3 hunters in Alabama are hunting right at dusk. One of them takes a shot. It's a kill shot, but the deer gets a few steps in. So deer heads into the wood line. They go after it. In the meantime, they lose the light, and they can't find this deer. So looking everywhere, they got flashlights. There's a good bit of leaf cover. And so one of the guys has a thermal. He gets up in a tree stand. He's looking around. He sees the deer, and his 2 buddies are standing right beside the deer. It's like, guys, it's on the radio, guys, the deer's right beside you. What are you doing? It's right there. They're like, what are you talking about? They're looking at, you can see their flashlights moving around. It's like, why can't you see it? I can see it on thermal, plain as day. It's right there, getting a heat signature. They finally find this deer. The deer is sitting in like a shallow, recently dug out, maybe 6-inch deep mini grave, or divot, where something has recently dug this out and covered the deer with leaves.
That's wild.
What does that?
Right.
What does that in a few minutes?
Yeah.
It couldn't have been more than minutes from the time they shot this deer to that happened. And of course, we hear stories of Bigfoot stealing hunters, kills and that kind of thing. That's sort of an old story that goes back into the history of indigenous people.
Absolutely.
So
that's fascinating.
So it's such an interesting story. It's not necessarily Bigfoot. He didn't see a Bigfoot. There was no encounter. Nobody saw anything.
Right, but what buries a deer?
Right. What buried a deer in a few minutes before they could get to the area where the deer dropped? I don't know. But hopefully he'll talk to me. I told him he doesn't have to say it's Bigfoot because he didn't see me. I don't want anybody to say anything that's not true. But at least to share that experience, because I think it's a very interesting one, and it's in line with the behavior that we see these creatures. So that's an interesting story. Also, A few weeks ago, I got a report, more people that aren't hesitant to come on camera. This is an area sort of where North Carolina, Georgia, and South Carolina meet, right there on the edge of North Georgia. And it's near a water source. And these people said they had a sighting. Creature went up, ran up into the woods. They were questioning what they saw. They went to investigate. They find tracks. And that was sort of their story. They say they have pictures of the tracks, trying to get a hold of them. But they're kind of iffy about communication. So 2 weeks ago or so, I'm gotten up really early. I drove to this area or near it, about 30 minutes away, and I'm shooting some dawn magic hour drone footage for the project, some B-roll. Got my dog with me, and I'm like, you know what? I'm only 30 minutes away. It's a little bit of a detour on my way home, but let's go check it out. So I go to this spot. Exactly where they saw it was a little bit of a steep grade, extremely steep grade. It's actually at the base of a waterfall. To get my dog down there, I was worried about with equipment and the dog and everything getting down there. So I decided I'd just take a little hike up this game trail. Let's just kind of see it going up in the woods, near where you go to check out the waterfall. And I take it, and there's some human tracks, and the human tracks disappear as I get deeper and deeper in there. I start to see some deer tracks, and it's interesting. Okay. All of a sudden, there you are. There's some 20-inch tracks.
Wow.
Human-like, obvious toes. I sent them to a few people. I'll send them to you. But there's at least 3 solid consecutive tracks. It didn't show up as well on camera as I wanted them to. But obvious toes. I showed them to a couple of people that aren't Bigfoot people, just to start. Like, what do you think about this?
All right.
And they're like, oh, those are toes. Okay, yeah, obvious toes right there. So we're talking very big track, and compared to the human tracks you saw earlier in the trail, you're talking tiny. Human tracks were tiny compared to this, and they seem to be in line following these deer tracks. So in an area where just had recent encounter, I think Bigfoot Map just posted another recent encounter in the general area of this place, this location. And so I've been back a couple of times investigating the area and haven't found more tracks. Maybe. Certainly not as clean as the first ones. But what I have found is that there are some unfinished tunnels.
Really?
In the area. So there's some pretty solid, basically a cave.
Yeah.
Where these guys could be living easily. Very interesting tunnels that were just started and not finished for whatever reason, lost funding, whatever it was. Very early, produced 1800s.
Yeah.
Little tunnels that were just left unfinished. They could easily be a nice place to sleep if you were up in the woods. Needed a cool, dry spot. So there's habitat. There's certainly food, water, shelter, everything in this area, and a long history of not only is this prime early Cherokee habitat pre-Trail of Tears, but even today, if you drive through some of the local mountain towns, you'll see Bigfoot statues outside. It's in the South, so it's not you're not in Washington State where that's pretty common and kitschy. It's more just like this random Bigfoot statue on Main Street. It's like, not even like, it's not a Bigfoot gift shop. It's nothing. It's not a little museum or anything like that. It's just a random business. And there's a Bigfoot festival around, the South Carolina Bigfoot Festival is, maybe an hour from this location. So it's definitely got a history in that area. North Georgia's really active. It seems like I got another report from a guy recently who it's actually a third party originally put me on this thread, but this guy took his son out hunting in North Georgia in the Appalachian Mountains there. they had to get to the location via horseback. So this is not, you're not even taking your rock crawler, you're certainly not taking your Jeep, you're not taking your minivan. Nobody is just going out to this area to just hang out. So he and his son are out there hunting, they've gone to bed, and they just basically get a ton of rocks thrown at them. They hear some crazy sounds. This whole thing goes on all night. This is a hard, stoic southern mountain people. Not really easily shook, and very shook up by this. Very shook up. So I recently finally got some photos from the encounter, and there were rocks there that obviously weren't, they were obviously new. So again, I take everybody by the word, based on what this guy's telling me and what I'm being sent evidence-wise. They had some big rocks thrown at them. They took some big chunks. These rocks took big chunks out of the trees around where they were camping. And that's not an easy thing to do, you know?
No, it's not.
These are big rocks, and they did some serious damage to the trees surrounding their camp. So it's, what was that, you know?
Yeah.
You have just people waiting up in the woods to mess with people. I mean, I guess you could. But these aren't the kind of guys you want to mess with, you know?
Right.
The kind of guy. And just the fact that these particular guys didn't get out of their tent, because what they were hearing, what was going on, you would think these guys would just get out of their tent and start blasting or something, or at least threaten to, or these guys just stayed in their tent.
Wow.
And wrote it out because, but I mean, they're up there like elk hunting, you know, and these aren't like, they've got some firepower. They're not, you know, carrying BB guns, they're not squirrel hunting, you know, it's not 22. They're looking to take big game. They had something that could have done some damage, and they just stayed in their tent and wrote it out. So that's one place I haven't gotten to yet, but hopefully I'll convince them to take me back up there, and we'll see what we can find. At least based on the pictures, at least the trees that were there should still be there with the damage that they took, you know, should still be evident.
Exactly.
This was 6 months ago, maybe, if that long. So it'd be nice to at least check out the spot. You know, we have environmental DNA options now, not just, you know, testing hair, but, you know, so, you know, maybe we can find something with that. Certainly samples we've been taking now, but, you know, all of that is cost. So just adds to the greater scope of what we're doing, and trying to not go broke doing it, and produce something is exciting. I just want to, you know, I want to produce something that gets people really excited, you know?
Yeah. I think you're in a unique position for this, you know, because one, you have the passion, you know what you're looking for, you know, you don't have, like you said earlier, you don't have an end game in mind. You're letting this develop. And
yeah, I mean, we're going to put it out on video on demand and all that stuff, but it's not, this is a labor of love, you know? I mean, obviously we hope to make money on it so we can keep making, you know, keep doing more and more, and we'll continue to do it one way or the other, but we want to get bigger, we want to get better, we want to use more equipment, better equipment, be able to produce, eventually, you know, we talked about practical effects and suits so far. Eventually, I'd like to be able to produce a composite at the end of each season, practically, of witness sightings, because, you know, it seems to be that there's not just colloquial names for these guys in different regions, but there's specific types in different areas, and sometimes multiple specific types in different areas. So eventually I'd like to really be able to get, you know, a full-time, and sometimes different full-time effects makeup artist to sort of, let's put together a composite of what we think this type is based on witness testimonies in this area. Let's create a really well-produced, practical composite of what this creature is. And then maybe, you know, if it needs to be, if we only have a guy that's 6'7" and we need to make the creature 9 foot, then we'll do some digital. We'll take that, we'll shoot it on blue screen or green screen, and we'll make him a little bit bigger. And then we can take that and go show that to witnesses. Okay, so based on what you saw, how close did we get? And this is what the, you know, West Virginia woodbooger looks like, or whatever the case may be. The, you know, the Cherokee Devil, this is what that looks like. This is what, the Ohio Howler, or, the Grassman, or whatever it is. This is what that looks like, based on witness, and this is the best practical recreation we could do of that. Monster Quest always had those cheesy CG models,
little
which were cool back then.
Yeah,
it was, they were Twitter. That was kind of cool. In like the late 2000s, maybe
right.
mid 2010s, however long that show went. But I want to do something similar to that, but be able to actually produce it in real life, if you will, and see what kind of. Now, some of the witnesses I've talked to might not want to see that. It might give them like post-traumatic stress. From how they've talked about some of the experiences they've had, but I think it would be a really interesting thing to show to people, and might bring life to it in a way that CG from Monster Quest or that kind of stuff, even just a artist rendering, is never going to do. So there's a lot to it. Again, I hope that maybe by the end of this first season, I'm able to do that with what we get from the Blue Ridge and from the Appalachians. But we'll see. We already like I said, we already have 2 suits made, and they're modular. So we're going to be trying out different things, different pieces, longer arms, shorter arms, more ape-looking faces, more human-looking faces. We're kind of already doing this, but that's why I really want to keep taking it to the next level and get people into this, because we want to make it bigger. We want to go better. I want every episode, every season, to keep taking it further. And we're not going to go from, maybe the first episode will be a little bit remedial, but I don't really, it's kind of like not every Batman movie needs to be an origin story. Not every Spider-Man movie needs to be an origin story. We don't need that every time. We know Batman's parents got killed.
If you're watching it, you're already a Sasquatch believer, or at least curious.
I love all the documentaries that are coming out. I watch it all, and I try to pay for it. If it's a pay documentary, I'll buy them all. I'll watch it all, support these filmmakers. But I can only take so much of the same. I already know this stuff. I mean, I've been researching this for 30 years. I've been, it's like, I get it. Patty was in the Pacific Northwest, Bluff Creek, shot films, great, it's cool, whatever. But what's next, and where are we going with theory here? Because there's one, okay, maybe there's 15, maybe there's 20, maybe there's 1,000, whatever in the Pacific Northwest. That's it. We know that's not the case anymore. And with everything that's developing in paleoanthropology, we've got, Neanderthal inbreeding that's just come out in the last 20 years. We've got now the Denisovans in the last 10 years. Now we've got these ghost populations.
Yeah, I saw that
popping up, and we know all this inbreeding going on. Paleoanthropology is showing us that at least the ancient stories fall in line with what we know was happening in the ancient world, which is crazy, right? So now it's like, this is a way bigger scope, and it's so important to human history. And it's so much more complex, I think, than anybody ever thought. And if there's all these different types that were interbreeding 10,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago, 30,000 years ago, then there's probably a lot of different types now that have continued to evolve, continued to adapt, or different. You've got all these stories of, whether it's the story of Sukalu or the story of Seraphin Long in the Pacific Northwest, you've got these stories of interbreeding. In the Sukalu story, the Cherokee bride he takes gives him children. Right. So they're interbreeding, right? So it's got to be close enough to us that they can breed. And we see that in paleoanthropology now. So it's exciting time, I think, to be in this subject matter. I think a lot of what's coming out in concrete science, modern, accepted science, I guess you would say, is supporting sort of the lore. But now we just really need to start honing in on a larger theory of what's going on here. And I think we're dealing with, if you say, and we may have talked about this a little bit before, but if you say, well, that can't be Bigfoot in that video because its arms aren't long enough.
Right. Yeah. I get that all the time.
like you can't set one set of biometrics for every type of Bigfoot that might exist.
Yep.
Because some may have longer arms for this evolutionary adaptation or this breeding or hybridization that was going on one type or another. But I think it's very easy to think that on the East Coast, where we are, where a lot of people say they see something that looks Neanderthal-like.
Right.
If we're talking about a land bridge, from Alaska to Asia, last ice age, that was covered by ice, you could easily have something similar going up through Canada, Greenland, and that area where maybe it wasn't all, but maybe it was crossable. So maybe you had more Neanderthal types, Denisovan types, and whatnot coming from Northern Europe, crossing over into Greenland and those areas, and then coming back down. There was also a lot less water. Sea levels were a lot lower, so there may have been more land there. There's an island called High Brazil that was supposed to be off the coast of Ireland. That's gone now, but it might have been there 10,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago. So there may have been a lot more islands, a lot more land that maybe you could swim to, maybe a Bigfoot could swim to, or whatever we're talking about here. So maybe it's interesting to me that you have more Neanderthal types described on the East Coast. And that would make sense with that sort of migration pattern from Northern Europe where Neanderthals were prevalent. Now, is it the exact same thing? Not necessarily. Neanderthals are thought to be smaller than we are, at least in height.
Right.
But it could have been some similar type, some sort of hybrid breed or other version that's similar to Neanderthal, other species that came here with them, likely. And we also know that we came here a lot earlier. They just found those tracks in the Southwest, 20,000 years old or whatever.
Yeah.
Human tracks there. So if there were humans here by then, what else was here? Whatever else was around it.
Everything else was here.
Everything else was here.
Yep.
So yeah, man, it gets real exciting to be on this journey right now. With the subject matter. And I'm into a lot of things, I don't think we've talked about it that much, but I haven't had too much of a direct sighting, but I've had other paranormal experiences that kind of opened my eyes to the possibility of this kind of thing. And I've always had a strong interest in paleoanthropology, paleontology, that sort of stuff. So all the cryptids really interest me, and I would like to take the series eventually to, Masters of the Hunt, Chupacabra, or whatever you want to, where you want to go with it. Lizard Man, I'm from South Carolina, so
right.
Lizard Man was a big thing when I was a kid. And I think there's a lot of interesting stuff around that. You look at the work of paleontologist Dale Russell. Dale Russell hypothesized that some early dinosaurs or some late Cretaceous period dinosaurs that were already bipedal, already highly intelligent, might have evolved into something that was like a lizard man, a reptilian human form if they continued to evolve, called the Dinosauroid.
Yeah.
I think that's there's lots of different ways we can go with cryptids, but I feel like Bigfoot's that gateway. Bigfoot's that catalyst subject matter that you can really get into all this other stuff from, and sort of open people up mentally to, okay, they have all this fossil evidence for similar type creatures, more and more evidence of these guys every day. Could they still be here? And what is the evidence to show that? And then just like you said, debunking the debunkers.
Yeah.
Say it's everything's a suit, everything's CG. I don't think it is, man. I don't think there's.
I got one fear that just jumped out at me, and I'm sure it's crossed your mind too. You're making these composites, you're working towards making composites, and you're also investigating. Now, if and when, hopefully when the day comes and you spotlight a Sasquatch, what are you going to say to these people that say, it's one of your suits?
Right, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's kind of what you have to say. But I think they'll see when they compare the two,
Yeah.
that it's not. I think that's what they'll see is that, and you have to do that. Otherwise, anybody could produce a suit, right?
Right.
But if you're showing that, like, listen, man, look, this is what we could produce, and this thing that we just dropped a drone on top of, hit it with a spotlight, and then, you know, shot these long range photos of it, whatever it was, and then it leapt across wherever and disappeared into the woods. Like, we couldn't do that. If that happens, I'll go back with one of my suits and recreate it.
Yeah.
Or try to.
Yeah.
Of course, that's immediately what I would do. Now, you know, I kind of dropped more than I expected the first time we talked, so I'll do it a little bit more this time. But down the line, what I'd like to do is use these composites as decoys.
Oh, I love it.
Can we combine composite suits with pheromones possibly, or something else, sound blasting, all these different things to maybe draw out their interest? We know they're curious creatures, right?
Yes.
Maybe they'd be like, what is that? Is that one of us? Is that not one of us? Is that another type of us? What is that? And have other people in the appropriate locations to take the shot, if you will.
Yes.
And, you know, you don't know how, you know, you got to do that, but, you know, that's a more advanced team that we got to really put together.
That's awesome.
I would even like to, you know, there's DNA sample darts.
Mm-hmm.
If you got a combination of the right photographic evidence of the event itself, photographic, video, you got full coverage of the event. And I think part of this, and you know, I'll go and say this, part of our strategy is getting people up high, because if you listen to a lot of hunters' accounts, like, this thing walked right underneath me. I only think it knew I was there because their scent was too high.
Yeah. And like the Eagle camera, you know, the Eagle camera filmed
Right.
that one walk through.
So if we can identify the right thoroughfares, if you will, put people in the right places, with the right equipment, the right time for long enough, and again, it's expensive. This is what National Geographic spends all their money doing, putting people for a long period of time, the right places, the right time, the right equipment. But there are DNA sample darts. You can shoot an animal, the dart releases itself basically,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a sample. So if you have really good photographic evidence of that, you have coverage of taking that shot, hitting the creature, recovering the dart, testing the DNA. That's potentially one way to get some pretty solid proof without having to kill a creature. Now, at the end of the day, do you have to have the option there to do otherwise? Maybe. I mean, I don't know. You're probably gonna need like a Barrett 50 cal or something to actually pull that off. But and I don't know, you know, how much damage is that going to do to your, you know, your subject at the end of the day. And that's certainly like not anything I want to see happen. But you know, how are we going to prove this otherwise? You know, and that's another thing. A lot of people will be very divided about this.
Very
interesting aspect of the community is how divided everybody is. Whether it may be over, is it ape? Is it human? Is it woo? Is it not woo? Is it, and, you know, I think last time we talked about it's a little bit all of it, isn't it? It's probably certain science that we don't understand yet that's represented in the woo stuff.
Yeah.
There's probably variations that are more ape than those are more human. I feel like we really got to open up the scope of this conversation and stop arguing about wood ape or human or, you know, this or that. It's probably all of it. You know, we need to look at all of it. And it's great that those people are doing that specialized research, but we don't need to argue about who's right. I think we all may be right. And we need to put that information together so that we can get this bigger picture of what we're actually dealing with.
Yeah.
And so, you know, things we talked about earlier too, or, you know, when we were talking about woo, is integrating things like EMF detectors and other tools and technology that are used in other types of paranormal investigation to at least have them in our experiment.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a you know, an instrument in our experiment to get a reading on. If suddenly our EMF detector goes crazy and a Bigfoot runs out of the woods, maybe he did come through a portal.
Right.
You know, maybe they are injured because they just set something off that was probably going to affect the electromagnetic field of the area. Now, if you see one and it walks right past a tree that you got an EMF detector strapped to, and nothing happens, at least that type existing at that time, in that space, in that place that we're at, in that investigation, it did not just come through a portal. Maybe it came through a portal 5 miles away, but it's just a constant that you can add to this experiment to start looking at all aspects of the phenomenon and try to get some sort of reading on what we're dealing with, because I think it's all over the place right now.
Yes, it is.
And highly contested in all its different facets. And so I really hope that we can use this broad scope of this media that we're creating to sort of create a conversation over how we can pull all these ideas and all this research together to really create a more holistic concept of what we're dealing with. I mean, holistic in terms of, yoga and meditating. I mean, holistic in eating. I mean, holistic in terms of it's a whole picture and everything is feeding into each other to create a more robust image of the phenomenon that we're dealing with. I think it's huge. I think it's beyond what anybody can imagine.
Yeah.
And where it may lead us is beyond where most of us can imagine what we're dealing with. That may be to the reality of what's going on under the crust of the earth, where these things may or may not be living, the level of environment and livable environment that may exist down there, to things in quantum physics, where we're talking about interdimensional issues, just human evolution and human hominin, hominid, all of this evolution, and how that may have diverged for the sake and survival of these creatures, and what that can tell us about our past and potentially our future as human beings, and where we're going and how we've adapted or haven't adapted. I mean, to me, I don't know if you've seen the movie Prometheus.
I don't think I have, no.
It's like a prequel to Aliens.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like a prequel to Aliens. You should check it out, because these aliens come to Earth, right, and seed the planet, basically a panspermia sort of kind of thing, except for they actually come here and they seed the planet with their DNA. These guys look like their DNA is just super dense. Like, take our DNA and make it like put in a forge like a Japanese katana and fold it on top of each other, hundreds of times. These guys are just big and dense and thick, and just put hair on them, and that's what I almost imagine at least the more human versions of these things would look like. Nice. Very pure, very like dense DNA. So it's to me, it feels like these creatures are almost more Terran than we are. It makes you wonder why we're so frail.
Yeah.
Earth has never been a easy place to survive.
Right. Like, how did we make it? Yeah.
Right. And, maybe that's where civilization came from. Maybe we created towns and villages to get away from these things that were more savage or stronger, more adapted to the environment than we are. And so that was our evolutionary adaptation. But these things seem much more suited for life on this planet than we do. So that's just one more of those rabbit holes and gateways that this subject can take you on, is how did we end up so more frail, so more fragile, so more, and why, what happened, and how does that apply to our history and our mythology and our,
right. That
goes into all kinds of things from ancient alien theory onwards, but it's such a great subject, and I hope that more people get into it as we move forward, and I hope that the project can kind of get some of those doubters rethinking what they're saying, because even some of the videos you see, you're like, okay, even from some of these contested people, you're like, okay, that's obviously could be hoax, but when you see things jumping from like one cliff to another, you see, all that kind of stuff. It's like, who's risking their life, and why didn't they get better footage of it?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you could have been twice as close, still been, I'm not sure what this is, and still got a much better shot of it, and still wouldn't have been able to really determine whether it was real or not. But it just seems like a waste. Some of these people are like risking their lives to, and we know it happens. We know that guy in Montana got hit running around in a ghillie suit by a car, but he wasn't jumping from one rock ledge to another. He wasn't, doing crazy athletic stuff. So, and this is something I told you earlier. We took one of our suits out. I think I told you this before we started recording. We took one of our suits out, had the guy, this is our big guy, stand by a busy road and wave at cars just to see what the reaction would be. I would say 75% of the people who this guy is standing in a very obvious location, not hiding at all, not peeking out from behind trees, standing in the open, waving at cars, I'd say 75% of the people never saw it.
That's wild.
I'm sitting there specifically watching the drivers to see who's seeing this huge guy in a Bigfoot suit,
Right.
waving at him, and most people drive by and don't even look. So if you're talking about a creature even of that size that's standing right within a tree line, you'd be standing any busy highway, any busy road. This was at 5 o'clock in the city. It wasn't like, it wasn't like out in the woods somewhere.
Right.
This was outside of our warehouse that we're using to put the suit together. And this was one of the first times we put together one of this particular application of one of the suits, and rush hour traffic. Nobody's even noticing it.
Wow.
So I think that alone to me was really, I'm like, I'm going to do a whole section on this. We're going to do this. We're going to show you guys, the people driving by, not even seeing this huge Bigfoot just standing on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Because you're so caught up with whatever's going on in your life otherwise.
Yeah.
You don't even see what's going on. We don't even notice. We're so busy. Some people did. I'd say about 25% of the people wave back. They're like, oh, and then it's oh hey. But most people just drove by, didn't even notice. So I mean, what are we missing? Caught up in our rat race.
That's it, man. Trey, I love talking to you because you have such an open mind, and a great mind. Like you're exploring all these avenues, things that I've never heard this approach taken. I've never heard somebody willing to entertain all of it.
Well, I think a lot of people want to, in this specifically, the people that are really trying to get out there. And if you look at my social media, you don't see my face on it,
right?
Because it's not about me. I think a lot of people want to be experts in something, or they want to be filmmakers, or they want to be, they want to be the expert in this type of Bigfoot, or they have to convince you that they're right about this. I don't think I know anything. I've archived hundreds and hundreds of accounts, tracks, videos, newspaper articles. I've archived it all online. I've been on my own investigations. I've been shooting this documentary for 2 years. I've been researching this most of my life. I don't think I know anything. I don't think I know anything because until I really have a close encounter, and even then, I don't think I know anything. I could see something tomorrow. I could go out in the woods tomorrow and see something, and I would still tell you, I know what this one that I just saw looked like. And I know what it did, and that's what I know.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't know anything, because I don't know if it walked off a mile and disappeared into a cave or a portal.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know until I get a DNA sample and have some sort of team to study it, to map all the genetic markers and do it. I have no idea what its lineage is. I don't know. But that's what's exciting to me, is not knowing.
Yeah.
And I can promise you, anybody that's being authentic about their approach to the subject is going to constantly find more of what they don't know than what they do. But it's a very interesting subject, and I started, like I said, with this one specifically because I feel like it's the most grounded.
Yeah.
It's the most, it's there. It's part of us. You have the Uncanny Valley hypothesis. I don't know if you've seen this, but this is the idea that we have this fear ingrained in us of something that looks human, but we know isn't. We can see it and tell it isn't.
Right.
That's because we lived with a bunch of things at one time or another that looked like us, but weren't. And they were a threat.
Yeah.
Of some kind. I mean, I've always been a threat, but at some point, we're a threat to each other. As humans, at any time, when I go out in the woods, I go armed. I don't go armed for Bigfoot. I don't go armed for much of anything because I don't want to kill anything.
Right.
I go armed in case I run into the wrong person.
Yeah.
Or come at the wrong time in the wrong place. I'm much more scared or threatened by other humans. But at the same time, if we're dealing with things that are potentially close to us, closer than chimpanzees, it doesn't matter if it's more ape or more human, it's going to be closer to us than anything else. It's a potential threat.
Yeah.
And always has been. So that's a theory in psychology, and it's something we'll touch on as well, but it basically proves that there was something in history.
Yeah, had to be.
And we know that there were Neanderthals coming in and killing off human populations.
Yes.
You know, there are human populations coming in and killing off Neanderthal populations. Vice versa. And it was probably going across all sorts of hominids. What a wild time that would have been. I mean, if I could take a time machine somewhere, I think that's why I want to go check out, because wow, a time where there was, but you know, look at Lord of the Rings. You get all these ancient stories of hobbits. Well, we got one in, you know, Southeast Asia now.
Yep.
We got the fossils for that. So we know there's been a bunch of giant skeletons found. We don't know what happened to them.
Right. Yeah, we do.
They're with the Ark in the Smithsonian somewhere.
That's it.
Man, it's real. It really was real at one time.
Yes.
Whatever, we know Gigantopithecus exists. He was only discovered because somebody was looking at dragon teeth, dragon bones, in an apothecary in China, and they were identified, oh no, this is a primate. We have a jaw and some teeth, which is most of what we have on most of these ancient relics. But we know they exist now, and if that's all we have of those, there's probably a lot more. We don't have any. I mean, you know how hard it is for a fossil to even form?
Right.
Extremely rare occurrence.
It's very rare for a fossil to form.
It's the perfect situation for that to occur. So if we have as much evidence as we do of all these different types, then there was likely many times more types. So what was going on 10, 20, 30, 100,000 years ago? I mean, wild times, man, wild times. A real Planet of the Apes.
Absolutely.
Now what's left of that? That's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
We're looking for the relict hominids. Though I think relict is, I use it on my social media, but I think it's actually probably not quite right, because a relict is something that's left over from a previous time. And I think this is really, they've likely continued to adapt and evolve. So it's not really that relict.
Right.
It's something different. It's something different than even they were dealing with back then. It's something that's adapted to live around us, to deal with civilization as it approaches everywhere. So what is that? You know, what does that become? That's extremely interesting.
That's a cryptid.
That's a cryptid, right? So
that's it.
Man, we always touch so much. I just want to keep talking forever.
I know.
All this different stuff. I could sit here, you know, till, you know, next week and keep talking. But you know, that's what I'm working on. There'll be more trickling out over time. I'm probably going to throw up a crowdfunding page at some point, just to see, probably Indiegogo, because there's not like a set, you know, goal you have to reach.
Yeah.
Either way, we're doing this. I've been doing it. I'm going to continue to do it. We're ramping it up more and more as I can go. But the more, a little bit of crowdfunding I can do, the more I can do for everybody. The more I can show what is this? What happens here? What happens if you do that, this, that? More equipment, more people. It all just, as you scale, anybody that's ever scaled a business knows, the more you scale, the more money you need, because everything exponentially advances, and you have, you know, when I get more people, I need more transportation, more food, more, you know, when I get more equipment, I need more people to carry it. We need more solar power packs to power it because we're going on horseback, you know, hours and hours into the mountains, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, man. It takes money. It takes money to do this stuff.
It does. I've been there for 2 years already. So it's you know, it's something we're gonna do. I'll probably do a little first look type video. I don't want to give too much away.
Right.
Some of it was screening. I don't know if anyone was reflecting in my glasses, but I did have some dailies. So if anybody screen capture my glasses, zoom way in, you might get something super blurry and pixelated. You won't be able to tell what it is. But while I've been talking, I have had some dailies on the screen. But you know, it's a big project. But you know, we'll keep, however fundraising or anything else goes, we'll keep hammering away at it because it's a you know, when I got into filmmaking, a family member said, you know, you'll probably never make money at that. You know, that's very rare. Now, this was before you could just throw stuff on Amazon or iTunes or anything, you know, before technology. Now I throw my drone out the sunroof of my car. You know, back then you had to get in a helicopter with the film camera and, you know, to get an aerial shot. Now all documentaries are just a lot of voiceover and aerial shots pretty much. But you know, we'll keep cranking on it and get it done. But you know, it's a lot of work and it has to be done, you know, when I'm not doing other stuff. But you know, he said you probably will never make money as a filmmaker. And of course, I've transitioned mostly into doing my day job is mostly marketing, content creation, social media, digital stuff. And I've made money doing that. But you know, I looked at them directly and I said, it's not about making money.
Right.
It's not about making money.
Right.
Why do I want to live my life to make money? I want to live my life to do stuff that interests me, that makes me passionate, that makes me excited, keeps me getting up in the morning. And if I can survive and keep doing and support my responsibilities, keep moving forward and whatever my passions are, I've already won. I don't need to be rich. I am a rich man.
Yeah,
right?
that's what it's all about, man. That's
what it's all about. I mean, that's what keeps you healthy. That's what keeps you alive in the long run.
Yeah, man.
You know? It's just chasing what you're passionate about, chasing what keeps you getting up, not just being, you know, going to a job and just doing it so you can pay your bills. You know, you gotta pursue what makes you happy. So luckily I've been able to do what I do. And I've actually recently made a little sort of DBA for my main company that's just going to focus on cryptid related commercial content for companies. So companies that have cryptid brands, you know.
Yeah.
And I've got a couple commercials already going with that, and I'm able to sort of double use my modular Bigfoot costumes and stuff like that for that kind of stuff. So there'll be some fun commercials you'll see coming out from me soon too. They're just like, you know, because at the end of the day too, some people take this, I take it very seriously, but also if you look at my story on Instagram, my story's a little lighter and more fun, whereas my grid is mostly just, you know, straight research.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, it's gotta be fun. I mean, I got into this when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It's fun, you know, it's fun to think about. And you know, I love the Jack Links commercials, you know, all that, anything like that. It's so much fun to just have it as part of pop culture, and it's royalty, you know, it's public domain. Nobody can like copyright Bigfoot.
Right.
And, you know, they only use it, or you know, any of this stuff really, Loch Ness Monster, Chupacabra, whatever it may be. So you know, we need to have fun with it. So I'm gonna have some fun commercials coming out through my production company, my main company. But the documentary will be what we've talked about, more on a serious tone, and then I have some fictional films I'm working on as well that I've actually been in development longer than the documentary stuff. The sort of companion stuff. So it's fictional works. Actually started a new script recently of a fictional piece about skunk ape. My other stuff is more classic Bigfoot. This is more focused on that, based on some sort of stuff that's occurred in the mainstream news and whatnot lately. So those hopefully will be coming out, you know, sometime after that. And we're going to sequence all this stuff out. I have a website that's going to be specifically dedicated to sort of universe I'm creating. Yeah, man, we're got a lot of projects in the mix, and we just want to really start with the information.
Yes.
Information out there. Let's go. And not just the Bigfoot was seen in, Northern California in the 1960s, and ever since then it's been debated as whether it's real or not. We want to get into all the other stuff. There's so much more to sink your teeth into. So much history. I mean, eventually like I said, we're going to start with.
There you go.
Sorry, we're going to start with. The United States. We're going to start with the Appalachians. We'll move to other regions. After the United States, Canada. I've got some places in Canada where I've gotten some really great evidence sent to me from that I wanted to check out. But after that, I'd love to go to, this is a worldwide phenomenon. It's not just the United States. There's obviously the woodwose in Europe, the yowie in Australia. I posted about the Lamona in Costa Rica the other day. This alba witch almost type creature, like a small, smaller Bigfoot type creature that has these crazy screams and runs around on rooftops and all that kind of stuff. But it kind of reminds me of the alba witch,
Right.
Sort of this little, and it makes sense that, you'd see this gnarled face on a female body with, making these crazy screams out in the woods, and early people would call that a witch, or the settlers would call that a witch. Or hear the screams, oh, it's that witch out there. So I thought it was interesting that had sort of somewhat of a similar correlation with something that exists in the United States. And then you have the small, and that goes with, Bergman's theory about smaller creatures, smaller animals in warmer climates, bigger animals in northern climates.
Yep.
So, man, I love this stuff. I just love talking about it. So, anybody out there, specifically in the region that we're starting with in this documentary that has something to share, evidence, story, anything like that, hit me up. I'm on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all at Squatch Me Now. I would love to talk to anyone, even if you don't want to be on camera, if you don't want to be in the documentary, want to hear your story. If you do, I'd love to talk to you. If you're an investigator, I've got a few in the local area that I'm working with, but there's more, I'm sure. Or even if you're just doing your own quiet personal thing, or you're just a hunter, or outdoorsman that went out and saw stuff and still goes in that area, or whatever it may be. If you're a makeup artist that wants to take a shot at producing a realistic Bigfoot, if you have your own interpretation of that, and you're a makeup artist or a suit creator or any, mask maker, whatever it may be, we'll give you big shout outs on social media and all that. And, just keep looking out. I'm expecting a first look with to release a first look with the crowdfunding, a teaser probably towards the end of the year, full trailer around the first of the year. And if all goes well, my birthday's in February, so I'd like to release the first episode in February if possible.
Awesome.
If not, maybe a little bit later in the spring, but I'd like to release those first 3 to 4 episodes that are based in the Blue Ridge that we've been working on, and throughout the spring, and be able to start releasing the rest as we go on. But they're episodes. I'm calling it docu-series, but these are going to be, solid little 1-hour documentary films, basically, that go on, and they cover all those subject matter that we've talked about, and they'll be season-long arcs, most likely like based on where we're looking, where we're investigating, how the makeup effects and recreations are going. So we'll use those suits for trying to recreate videos, but also for reenactments. We've got some great stories that we've gotten that we want to sort of reproduce for people just to have a visual of those stories. And we're going to be looking into historical cases from, prehistory all the way through to the modern times. And in those first episodes, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee, pretty much.
Good deal.
And then which is that Cherokee, Sulkaloo area. And they'll be moving closer to you, in that West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Maryland, Virginia, that whole area. And then we'll see, you know, north, obviously New York, and on up through the mountain chain. And that'll probably be the first season. And then after we're done with that, like I said, maybe Florida, Texas, Arkansas, season 2. Maybe we just keep going west, and you know, Kentucky, Alabama. I get the Alabama white thing, you know, so much going on. I had some great stories, some great tracks sent from Alabama and Kentucky, Ohio. So there's just, you know, like I said, Ohio might be its own thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Ohio's got so much going on.
Yeah.
Salt Fork, Grassman, Howlers, so much going on there.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna, because everything's so great now, you can kind of just release stuff as you create it, you know, whether it's on Amazon, iTunes, all these VOD platforms. I'm just gonna kind of go with this, see where it takes us. I know where I'm starting because that's where I live.
Right.
But from there, we're just gonna, let's see where it takes us next. And, you know, when you're shooting a real documentary, you never know what's gonna pop up.
That's it.
And I'm gonna keep doing these kind of things, hopefully with you and other people, so that I can reach out, and maybe more people reach out to me as we're in production for the foreseeable future, to sort of help this thing organically evolve with the community as we move forward. So I want to bring in everybody: photographers, CGI artists, makeup artists, witnesses, investigators, anybody that wants to be a part of really looking at this from a big picture, from 30,000 feet, and then zooming down into this, zooming down into that, and hitting these different points and seeing how we can expand on those, and then go back up 30,000 feet and say, okay, how much ground have we covered? How much have we been able to clarify what we're seeing? Because I can tell you, Bigfoot probably isn't blurry. It's probably your shutter speed's not right, set right. Or, you know, your autofocus is off, or, you know, you're too far away and you've zoomed in too much, and it's pixelated instead of blurry. But he might be. If his hair is an antenna for some sort of energetic field that he can produce and create like sort of a fiber optic optical camouflage with his hair, then, you know, maybe he can go predator. That's not blurry, right? That's
stealth
pretty
mode.
much invisible.
Yeah.
Right. That's reflective, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. When you told me that, when you mentioned that last time we talked, that changed my whole. It blew my mind. I was like, I've never considered that. You know, just
consider it, man. I mean,
if you hear it just had a vibration, who knows what?
Right. I mean, it's all connected to your nerves. You know that every time something scary happens, your hair stands up on end, right?
Yep, that's it.
So your hair stands up on end because it's connected to your nervous system. Well, your nervous system is connected to your brain.
Yeah.
So if Bigfoot or those type of creatures, or some types of them, can send some signal to tell their body hair a certain thing,
yeah,
which makes it create some sort of chameleon effect or whatever that may be.
Yeah.
And then you have long flowing hair moving around, and you're creating a predator type effect, right?
Right.
Which is very interesting. It's a very interesting thing to think about.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, man.
It's right.
Well, we're going to do another one of these. Let's
Yeah.
schedule it
Yes.
as we get closer to the release.
Yeah, I'd like to do
I'll
it
tell you
again
where
in a couple
give you an
months.
update.
You know, right at the
Yeah.
time.
So much more will have happened by then. So
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. And I got some names I'm going to throw to you too. I'll send you messages on Instagram like I usually do.
yeah, man, we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, for sure. I got some people I want you to holler at.
Right. So new website's coming up. Until then, check out squatchmenow.net. Masters of the Hunt series will be up.com will be up soon. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube is Squatch Me Now. When I get to 1,000 followers on YouTube, I haven't really been keeping my YouTube up as much as I should. When I get to 1,000 followers on there, I'm going to do a live Q&A, so everybody can ask me whatever they want to know about series or Bigfoot in general. So go find me there. I'm going to do something probably from the same screening room, and Man, we're going. Very fast. Also, look out for crowdfunding on Indiegogo probably within the next month. I'll be announcing all that on social media. So just stay tuned. We got a lot going on, and it's going to be big.
Awesome. I'll do whatever I can to help you out. I'll plug things. I'll share things. Whatever you want me to do, man. I want to see
when I get to West Virginia, you're going to come be in an episode for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure, no doubt.
Right? Definitely. We're going out together, right?
I'll take time off work. We'll go. Whatever you want to do.
Let's do it, man. All right. Sounds good, man. I look forward to talking to you again soon, and we'll be in touch on social.
All right. Thanks, Trey. Have a good night, man.
Man, you too. Good night.